Okay, I think that's it. I think we're rolling.
Hi, everyone. Can you say hi?
Hi. Hi. Okay. Well, so, what do you want to tell a story?
Where can I begin this story? The end, maybe, standing at the top of another world. Or somewhere in the middle, on the road.
Almost there. Oh dear.
Or back when this whole thing was still just an idea.
Lonely world. Took the midnight train going anywhere.
Perhaps I should start before I even had a part to play in any of this. 10 years before I was born. At the beginning. Those are my parents. That's my dad, Scott, and my mom, Tiffany, on their wedding day in July of 1990. They'd known each other since grade school, grew up only a few miles apart. Their first date was less than a year before this. I guess things have always moved pretty fast in this family. Would you just get a load of that helicopter? 2 days after their honeymoon, they were on a plane, headed to the Arctic.
Life kicks off right now.
Yes.
From this moment, it won't slow down for a long time.
See the pyramids along the Nile.
This is Coley School, home of the Cavics.
My parents come from a long line of teachers, now with 5 generations on my mom's side, 2 on my dad's. They carried the torch and planted it in a place few others had ever been, the North Slope, the northernmost borough in Alaska. Above it, only ocean.
See the marketplace
Here's
in
my wife.
old
Mom taught all subjects for grades 3 through 8, and Dad was the only high school teacher. This was before the internet was around. They'd go 2 months out of the year in total darkness, and from November to March, it was pretty much below 0 degrees.
You belong to me.
In December, only 4 months after moving there, a polar bear came into the village and killed a man. That night, Dad got sworn in from Washington, D.C. with the jurisdiction to track it down. It made international headlines.
This is one from the Washington Post.
In one particularly bad winter, they got stuck in a blizzard on the walk home from school. No more than a few hundred yards. Visibility was so bad at times they couldn't see their hands in front of their face, and the snow electrocuted them from downed power lines. It was only when shielded from the wind behind the cover of a neighboring house that they were able to make out a gloved hand pounding on a window and got out of the storm.
What are 2 crazy kids from Waterville doing in weather like this? My face is totally about ready to freeze off, too. In fact, it's so cold I'm going to quit filming. My face can't handle it. See ya later.
After 3 years in Point Lay, they got transferred for their standout performances to another native village within the same district, more inland, with mountains this time around. They taught another 4 years in Anatuvik Pass.
And now we're going into school. Pet code.
Dad taught high school science, PE, woodshop, and social studies.
And here's my room.
He also coached the high school boys and girls basketball teams. The girls' team placed second in state in '95. Mom taught all core subjects for middle school, a bunch of high school electives too. They covered all the after-school duties as well. It wasn't easy. It was hard work. They dealt with a lot of really heavy things up there, the types of things that change who you are. They left the slope a few years after that in '97 and taught internationally for a few more years, returned home, started a family, became writers. Dad got into television, first as a host and later on as a producer too. Mom wrote cookbooks. We traveled the world for the family business and had a home to grow up at in Oregon through it all. 29 years later, it's come full circle. And that's where this story picks up, with sights, once again, pointed north.
There is something poetic about being late to your own going away party. Yes, that is a wedding dress.
Now, this idea of returning to the north, back to Alaska, had always been an option for as long as I've been around. If the television shows didn't work out, or if we just wanted a change of scenery, Alaska was always there.
Casson, this is your going away party too. We're all my friends.
It had been floating on the periphery for so long that it almost took on this myth-like quality growing up. At some point, I felt it became more of a hypothetical fantasy than a real potential change of plans.
Nice to meet you.
A little less than a year ago, though, it started to materialize into a real option again. Mom and Dad bringing it all back to where it started. My brother Kasdan going along to finish high school in a new place.
Or go for round 2 in there.
And me staying behind to live at home and continue going to college. To make a longer part of this story short, the script on the whole application process was flipped so many times, I don't think any of us thought it was going to happen this year. In the final hour, that changed, and 2 teaching positions for a 1-room K-12 school in the southeasternmost point of the far north popped up.
Oh my gosh!
We're going. It's official.
Congratulations.
Crazy.
I knew 20 minutes after she left.
Me too, I knew too. I also was in on it as well.
Is that an owl?
Packing HQ, T-minus 92 hours until departure, also known as ground control.
I've never seen my life packed up in boxes.
Really happening.
If things were different, if things in this family followed a more predictable path, I'd be the one leaving home, packing up for another year at school.
There we go. Good job. That's how it works. Yippers.
But we've never done anything the normal way in this family. The lives in these boxes weren't mine.
Rise and shine, Alaskan.
After all these years, it was really happening.
Thanks for your help with everything.
I'll see you soon. So it begins. We're off.
Are you scared?
I'm scared now.
Holy crap, I'd be scared shit.
Once on the road, we didn't stop for much, to refuel and maybe grab a bite to eat. We had to keep schedule. Over 23 hours behind the wheel, divided into a 3-day voyage. Everything pretty much went off without a hitch, through the rest of Oregon, Washington, and across the border.
We are in the land of Leonard Cohen and Joni Mitchell now.
Canada.
When you're lost in Juarez and it's Easter time too, and your gravity fails and
Great Canadian Road Trip,
don't
Day 2.
pull you through. Don't put on any airs when you're down on Route
I don't know how to put it. Well, that sounds like an excuse. Not an excuse. Yeah, I'm gonna hurt you physically. Final leg of the Haugen family relocation trip has commenced.
There's no turning back now.
If you see St. Annie, tell her thanks a lot.
We have to get a picture by
I
the sign.
cannot move and my fingers are all in a knot.
For most of the road trip, it felt like just another one of our family adventures. All of us on the road again, off to some exciting new place. But this wasn't just another one of our family adventures. This was a farewell trip, a 1,200-mile journey to somewhere that was about to change all of our lives.
Here we go, it's the sign right there. That's it, that's where we're going.
With everything going on, I never really stopped to question my role in any of this. I guess I'd taken on the part of an observer, there to lend a hand and tell a story that in the near future, I understood would soon come to no longer include me.
If you zoom, will it say
The
higher?
natural and ultimately necessary separation all of us need to go through to get to the different places we're headed.
Crazy!
Ready to start our new life together? It's gonna be fun.
That's it, that's the place. Made it.
I guess it was something I always had in the back of my head, but it wasn't until the boxes were unpacked and we walked the halls of the school where their new life was waiting for them that I was forced to come to terms that I'd be going soon.
I think we should start a
That
chain
these were the final days we'd be together as a family for who knows how
Build a
long.
half pipe up here.
The turning of new chapters in all our books was in passage, and I knew the end of mine was one of goodbyes. Leaving Mom is, well, I don't know. I have nothing to compare it to. I'm off the map here, fumbling around in the dark. I don't know what it's going to be like to be separated from the person I've gotten closest to in life. What anything is going to look like without having her voice of reason and love by my side. She's the first hero I chose and has taught me well how to pick out the rest of them. Then there's Kasdan, my kid brother, the only real partner in crime I've had worth keeping around. The only real friend I've had through it all. He had the spirit to leave behind the life he's made at home in favor of an adventure. I've got to go around my whole life saying I spent my first year in Indonesia when my parents were still teaching overseas. Which is true, but I don't remember it. It's one of those origin stories I embellish to give myself something to talk about in bad company. But Kasdan gets his year now, for real. His own story. This tale from some far-off place he's been where he can reinvent himself, come back being whoever he wants to be. I think like a lot of boys, my relationship with my father has been this part of who makes me who I am that I've always struggled to characterize. Growing up, it was defined for a public with words that weren't mine in a world I only pretended to understand. I guess because of that, or in some part my lack of confidence in my own judgments, it's been something I've always veered away from in my movies.
And Daddy looking over the property.
We've become close through the work we've done together post-television in the last year more than ever.
Holy.
He made me feel not so alone in feeling lost and being able to find anything meaningful in college. He hated it too.
Dad's pretty excited about the bear situation already.
I think we've always made better business partners than we did fitting into whatever a more traditional role of father and son might look like. It's taken me almost my whole life to come to this, but I wouldn't have it any other way. My dad cleared the path ahead of me to pick up the tools I've started to create myself with. He's passed down my ever-present yearning to run away from everything that's not conducive to working on what I love.
Maybe that's our cue to get back in the truck.
When I was younger, the first real advice I remember him giving me was this quote taken from this poster he'd pinned up in his classroom from when he was teaching in Alaska the first time. Now, I don't know who said it, but he told me someday it'd do me a lot of good. It said, "If you do what you've always done, you'll be where you've always been." It's easy to go on about how change is romantic, with this medium especially, but sometimes it means leaving behind or putting on hold what you love. That's not so romantic. That's difficult and painful. That's the part that doesn't get talked about. But nothing lasts forever, and the right thing to do is oftentimes the hardest. So, to see my dad show up to stare down his own advice to me and accept it himself, knowing what he's stepping down from, a career he's spent the last 19 years building here at home, doing what he loves. More than any other time in my life, I actually have an understanding of what it means.
Because I want the view of where the mountain goats live.
I can see it all in motion now. It's not just words on a poster, it's an antidote from my own life. A key to unlock a door I set out to find before I knew what I was even looking for. As a kid, that's all I ever wanted from my father. You'd think for a stage in life marked by such overwhelming change that a sense of calm would be the last emotion to underline a transition like this. Maybe it's nothing more than a comforting, albeit fleeting window of rest for what lies on the other side of this trip. Perhaps it's a trick played by this undisturbed place, swindling you into thinking it has something to pass along if you just listen close enough. It comes from the mountains, the ones you can't escape when you look up, with all their imposing glory and wisdom carried down by the wind. And for an instant, it feels like the whole world is towering over you, as if to say, pay attention, don't forget these moments.
We brought a loop and just spilled the coffee. Big surprise.
I went to a breakfast prayer, our last family prayer.
Stop it. Don't even.
The final family adventure. See you soon. Maybe Alaska's friendliest ghost town.
Thanks, bud.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Take care, Mom and Dad. Love you. That's right. Hi, so nice to see you. Hope we cross paths again.
I know, right? Probably will.
Yeah, bye-bye.